Oxford student Levinia Woodward, who was dubbed too brainy to be jailed for stabbing her lover, received a 10-month sentence, suspended for 18 months. The aspiring heart surgeon had studied at the prestigious Sir James Henderson British School of Milan. Her friend from that institution claimed that after Woodward went to Oxford, she became prone to dark moods and started posting nude selfies online. That friend added that it quickly got around that Woodward was addicted to cocaine. Another friend alleged that Woodward had lied to a former partner about having cancer for several months to cover up the ravages of drug abuse. The young woman's legal trouble stemmed from an incident that unfolded on the night of September the 30th of 2016, during which she and her boyfriend at the time, Thomas Fairclough, had a heated argument. During the course of the ensuing altercation, Fairclough threatened to contact Woodward's mother. At that point, Woodward allegedly punched him in the face before picking up a bread knife and using it to stab him in the leg and cut his fingers. She reportedly hurled a laptop, glass, and jam jar at the man during the attack. Court records indicated that during a 999 call, Fairclough could be heard screaming, "I think my girlfriend has taken a lot of drugs." The victim was treated at the scene and didn't require hospitalization. Woodward later admitted a charge of unlawfully wounding Fairclough and was consequently spared jail time after Judge Ian Pringle said that the effects on her career would be too severe. The 24-year-old tearfully mouthed, "Thank you," to Pringle as he let her off immediate custody. The deferred sentence she'd received imposed conditions which required her to remain drug and alcohol free and to commit no further offenses. Pringle said he wished to give her the chance to prove she could continue to rehabilitate herself. He also handed down a 5-year restraining order, preventing Woodward from having any contact with the victim. In the aftermath, the case has sparked widespread debate over the inequality of the UK's criminal justice system. Number 11. Jasmine Ortega. 20-year-old New Mexican woman Jasmine Ortega was charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon after she attacked her boyfriend on the evening of August the 5th of 2018. The couple had started arguing while they were attending a party at their neighbor's home in their apartment complex. The boyfriend decided to leave the party and entered their own unit, where he locked himself in the bedroom. Ortega reportedly followed him and forced the bedroom door open, then threatened to assault her boyfriend. The woman grabbed a metal fork she found on the floor and threatened him with it before bombarding him with at least 10 punches. She also grabbed him and bit him. The boyfriend reacted by forcefully pushing Ortega away before fleeing the scene and calling 911. Doña Ana County deputies responded to the scene and found the victim with abrasions to the right side of his face, both legs, his back, the right side of his torso, and his chest. They also determined that the bedroom door in the couple's apartment bore damage from Ortega forcing it open. In the aftermath, she was arrested and booked into the county detention center. It was unclear what sentence she received, if any. Number 10. Anastasia Bellchakina. Russian woman Anastasia Bellchakina was jailed for 10 years after she dismembered her boyfriend's body in a satanic ritual at their Oriole flat on February the 11th of 2018. The court heard that Bellchakina's boyfriend, 24-year-old Dmitry Sinkevich, had died from asphyxiation during a rough intercourse session with Bellchakina. The 21-year-old had initially denied killing Sinkevich, but she eventually confessed that she'd killed him during a playful intercourse. She added that she'd used a large kitchen knife to cut off his genitals and his cheeks, chop up his limbs and extremities, as well as gouge out his insides. As she was callously cutting up his body, her sister, Ksenia, called her and asked what she was doing. "I'm dismembering my boyfriend," she reportedly replied. Ksenia immediately called their parents, who in turn alerted the police regarding the ordeal. After dismembering the victim, Bellchakina threw some of the body parts in the trash bins outside their residence, and others she put in her freezer. The killing is believed to have been carried out as part of a gruesome satanic ritualistic sacrifice. In the wake of the incident, Bellchakina was detained by the police, and the court sentenced her to several months of forced stay in a psychiatric hospital. Ultimately, she was found guilty of manslaughter. Number 9. Jordan Worth. Englishwoman Jordan Worth reportedly cut and scolded her partner, Alexander Skeel, in a June 2017 incident that seemed to be the culmination of a history of abuse. Skeel met Worth at college in June of 2012 and soon became besotted with her. Worth's abuse began early in the relationship, controlling which clothes Skeel wore and assaulting him. Worth isolated him from his family, sending messages from his phone telling them not to contact him anymore. She even broke his mobile phone and took over his social media accounts. At one point, the woman falsely told Skeel that his grandfather had died. When the man cried about the news, she berated him. The abuse escalated further, with coercive control allegedly occurring between April 2016 and June 2017. According to court records, Worth's violence towards Skeel eventually caused him to suffer hydrocephalus. The ongoing abuse included Worth beating Skeel with blunt objects, pouring scalding water on Skeel's arm, and refusing to take him to get medical attention. For nearly a year, she even prohibited him from sleeping in the same bed as her at their Stuartby home. In June of 2017, the neighbors heard the couple arguing and the sounds of things being thrown in their house. The neighbors called authorities after hearing Skeel shout, "Get off me! Don't keep doing that to my head!" and seeing the girlfriend at the window armed with house tools. Responding emergency services took Skeel to the Lister Hospital in Stevenage, where he was examined. Healthcare professionals found that the victim had burns on his legs, as well as stab wounds around his body and limbs. A couple of days later, Worth was taken into custody. The 22-year-old appeared in court on April the 13th of 2018 and pleaded guilty to controlling or coercive behavior in an intimate relationship, wounding with intent, and causing grievous bodily harm with intent. She was sentenced to 7.5 years and was made the subject of an indefinite restraining order. Number 8. Shay Groves. After butchering her lover, 25-year-old Englishman Frankie Fitzgerald, Shay Groves giggled while she showed her friend the man's lifeless body over video chat. The ordeal unfolded in the early hours of July the 17th of 2022 after Groves discovered Fitzgerald had been exchanging messages with a young teen via Facebook. In a jealous rage, Groves fatally knifed her boyfriend 17 times in his sleep at her home in Havant, slicing his throat and stabbing him in the chest repeatedly. She immediately video called her friend Vicky Baitup after the attack and pointed the camera at Fitzgerald's body, saying, "I've done him." Groves had recorded the couple having consensual BDSM interactions and edited these to insinuate abuse. She had reportedly threatened to release these tapes while Fitzgerald was alive. After his death, however, she showed them to her friend, claiming to have been a victim of domestic violence and thus justified in killing the man. Nevertheless, Baitup contacted authorities and reported what she'd seen. Police arrived at Groves' home on Botley Drive and arrested her during her trial in January of 2023. Groves claimed that Fitzgerald had started throttling her during a domestic dispute and that she had mistakenly hit him in the neck with a dagger while trying to grab a nearby object. Nevertheless, jurors rejected the 27-year-old's pleas of self-defense after hearing that she'd failed to promptly call police and instead cleaned up the crime scene and moved Frankie's body. Groves had an obsession with famous serial killers, which was shown by numerous posters in her home. Thus, the jury knew that she had knowledge of crime scene investigation, putting her final defense to rest. In the end, she was found guilty and sentenced to life behind bars with a minimum term of 23 years. Number 7. Melissa Turner. Florida woman Melissa Turner, who'd reportedly killed her boyfriend by stabbing him in the back in a fit of rage, tried to claim self-defense in her trial. The ordeal took place at the couple's Tampa home on October the 17th, 2019, when the 29-year-old called 911 and reported that she'd found her boyfriend, 25-year-old Matthew Trussler, lifeless by their pool. Responding law enforcement found the girlfriend covered in dried blood. Turner agreed to go to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office for questioning, during which she initially claimed that she didn't know how Trussler died. Meanwhile, Detective Ryan Lagasse obtained footage from a neighbor's surveillance camera which was facing the direction of the couple's residence. Lagasse reviewed the footage in which he heard what sounded like screaming. Lagasse noted that as he continued listening to the audio from the camera, he heard the voice of a woman yelling profanities while telling someone to die. Turner was confronted regarding the voices and screams. At first, she said she had no memory of screaming and yelling, but when pressed by detectives, she admitted that she had an argument with Trussler. The woman claimed that as their verbal dispute turned physical, her partner strangled her, at which point she grabbed a knife and stabbed him. Despite Turner's version of events, she was arrested and charged with second-degree murder with a weapon. Trussler's autopsy later revealed a few wounds that reportedly didn't seem to corroborate Turner's narrative. Hillsborough County Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Mary said the victim had a defensive wound on his right forearm, a huge cut to his upper bicep, his middle chest, and a small cut on his right shoulder, as well as a large wound in the middle of his back. After Turner's week-long trial, a jury found her guilty of second-degree murder. Ultimately, she was sentenced to 20.5 years behind bars. Number 6. Cheryl Murphy. In the early hours of September the 18th of 2019, police in Las Vegas, Nevada responded to a call regarding a disturbance at an apartment. Officers arrived at the residence to find 50-year-old Jesse James with a stab wound. 38-year-old Cheryl Murphy, better known as adult film starlet Bridget the Midget, told them that she should go to jail because she did it all. During questioning, Murphy said she entered the apartment through an unlocked door and found her boyfriend asleep with another woman. She yelled at the pair, grabbed a knife and stabbed James. The other woman picked up Murphy and threw her out of the apartment, at which point Murphy threw a barbecue grill through the front window of the residence. James was taken to a university medical center where he was treated for non-life-threatening injuries. He told investigators that he and Murphy didn't live together but admitted that they'd been having intercourse for the last couple of years. The suspect was promptly arrested and booked into the Clark County Detention Center on charges of domestic battery with a deadly weapon, burglary with a deadly weapon, and assault with a deadly weapon. Number 5. Carleen Bis Wanger. The New York Post said that a Florida couple's relationship hit guac bottom after the girlfriend hurled an avocado at her 68-year-old boyfriend at their home in St. Petersburg. A glimpse of the attack, which unfolded on the evening of March the 12th of 2023, was witnessed by a neighbor. The suspect, 39-year-old Carleen Bis Wanger, didn't only use the fruit but was also reportedly seen utilizing a hanging rod to strike her boyfriend in the arm. The victim suffered injuries in his right eye and arm. Consequently, deputies with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office were called to the residence located in the 500 block of 3rd Avenue South. Bis Wanger was taken into custody and charged with battering a victim aged 65 or older, which is a felony in Florida, according to an arrest record. She pleaded guilty on June the 5th of 2023 and was sentenced to 38 days behind bars. The relatively light sentence came as a surprise given the offender's history. Records indicated that the woman had prior convictions for legal possession of Xanax, theft, DUI, obstructing police, probation violation, and driving without a license, according to the outlet. Number 4. Taylor Schabusiness. After 24-year-old Shad Thyron's head was found in the basement of a residence on Eastman Avenue in Green Bay, Wisconsin, his girlfriend, Taylor Schabusiness, was arrested. The horrific incident began on February the 23rd of 2022. The couple were using methamphetamine together in the basement of the home, which belonged to the boyfriend's mother. At some point, Schabusiness strangled Thyron to death during intercourse. She continued being intimate with Thyron's body before dismembering and mutilating it. Thyron's mother later discovered Thyron's head in a bucket in the basement and immediately called law enforcement. When police later arrested Schabusiness, her left hand was still bloody. The woman told officers that they were going to have fun trying to find all of the organs, according to a criminal complaint. The victim's other body parts were eventually found in a storage tote in the house, in a crock pot, and in a van outside the apartment. It was also determined that the suspect had an obsession with Wisconsin serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. Schabusiness had pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder by reason of a mental disease, but a jury subsequently found that she wasn't mentally ill when she killed Thyron. More than a year later, Schabusiness was convicted of first-degree intentional homicide, third-degree sexual assault, and mutilated a corpse. In September of 2023, she was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Number 3. Sida Marie Soo. On November the 20th of 2022, Texas woman Sida Marie Soo FaceTimed her boyfriend before showing him a flaming chair inside his San Antonio residence and telling him, "I hope your stuff is going to be okay." The 23-year-old had broken into the man's house located on Shepherd Road and stole several items before starting a fire. The blaze spread to other parts of the house, causing damage estimated at around $50,000. Shortly after, the Little Fire Department and Bexar County Fire Marshal's office responded to the scene and put out the fire. The following day, Soto was taken into custody and charged with second-degree burglary, habitation by force, and first-degree arson. Her arrest was the result of a joint investigation between the Fire Marshal's office and the Bexar County Sheriff's Office, during which she was identified as the suspect. Investigators learned that Soto had been prompted to carry out the crime after she became jealous of another woman. Hours before the fire, Soto called her lover, but a female answered his phone. It was later revealed that the woman was actually the man's relative. She was finally sentenced to 6 years of incarceration on October the 23rd of 2023. Today's topic was requested by Amy Ernest 1665 and Amin Your Mum's Minge. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Sierra Sutton. 30-year-old Baytown, Texas woman Sierra Alexis Sutton killed her live-in boyfriend on August the 16th of 2017, then dismembered his body with a machete. Local police said that Sutton stopped answering phone calls and wasn't available for interviews after she reported 32-year-old Stephen Coleman as a missing person on August the 18th, 2 days after the killing. Unable to locate her, officers executed a search warrant at Sutton's apartment in the 1700 block of James Bowie Drive and found blood all over the unit, including in the kitchen, bedroom, and bathroom. 4 days later, after Coleman was reported missing, his torso was discovered at a Baytown landfill. Investigators ultimately determined that he'd been fatally shot in the head by his girlfriend after a verbal altercation. The woman had cut him into pieces, wrapped his body parts in a sheet, and disposed of them in several dumpsters around the town to cover up the heinous crime. She fled from Baytown to Metairie, Louisiana, but was later found and taken into custody. According to detectives, she openly told multiple people about the shooting and said she'd done the dismembering because he was too heavy to carry. In February of 2019, she was convicted and sentenced to 45 years behind bars. Stick around after number 1 if you would also like to see our previous episode about the top 10 angriest exes in the world. Number 1. Liliana Cervantes. On March the 20th of 2023, Texas woman Liliana Cervantes stabbed her fiancé repeatedly, killing him while their 2 small children were in their apartment in Houston. Instead of calling 911 immediately, she ran to find a needle and thread. Local police responding to the scene found Cervantes trying to sew up her fiancé, 32-year-old Nathan Freeman. Homicide detectives found 2 large bloody knives in the kitchen sink. They questioned Cervantes and she admitted that she and Freeman had been drinking and arguing before she blacked out with their baby daughter next to her. Cervantes claimed that when she awoke later, she found Freeman standing by the front door covered in blood. The 25-year-old added that her husband subsequently fell to the floor. She further claimed that it was at that point that she realized Freeman had a stab wound to the chest. Cervantes wasn't immediately arrested, but after police investigated further, they took her into custody on April the 4th and charged her with murder. Records indicated that she was being held on a $100,000 bond while awaiting a trial scheduled for early 2024. The Harris County medical examiner had determined that Freeman's death had been caused by a stab wound to the chest. The examiner also identified that the victim's wounds were sustained because of self-defense. The motive behind the stabbing wasn't immediately revealed. Jesus Adelaida Jesse Lopez, a 40-year-old Florida resident, attempted to hire a hitman to murder her husband, Daniel, in October of 2019 after he agreed to testify against her in court. Lopez had been charged with operating an unsanctioned weight loss clinic and was awaiting trial behind bars. She sought to hire someone to murder the prosecution's key witness, who just so happened to be her spouse, and wanted it to appear like a robbery gone wrong, so it wouldn't be linked back to her. Lopez wasn't aware at the time that the prospective assassin she was speaking to was an undercover cop, which soon led to her being charged with solicitation to commit murder. It only added to the slew of legal troubles she'd faced in the past year. Back in June of 2018, Lopez was arrested for the first time for practicing medicine without a license after she allegedly pretended to be a nurse. She'd been granted probation upon agreeing to a plea deal with the prosecution under the condition that she never again claimed to be a nurse or possess needles, but she reportedly returned to her old ways shortly thereafter. Number 9. Ricardo Quinones. 38-year-old Ricardo Quinones gunned down his estranged wife Lindsay at her house in Georgetown, Texas on December the 27th of 2022. She had reportedly been at home with the former couple's teenage daughter when a masked assailant barged inside. The teen managed to flee through a bedroom window but recognized the sound of her father's voice while hiding outside. Although she attempted to reason with the man, she eventually called 911 after he tied her mother to the bed. Police arrived at the scene and initially attempted to negotiate a surrender but forced their way into the house after hearing 2 gunshots being fired at about 3 o'clock in the morning. Quinones fled the scene but was arrested in Columbus in the hours that followed. Police reportedly discovered the murder weapon in his vehicle. As of the latest developments, the investigation was still ongoing. Number 8. Robert Brown. In October of 2010, former British Airways pilot Robert Brown murdered his estranged wife Joanna at her home in Berkshire, southeast England. He bludgeoned her to death using a claw hammer and tried to hide the crime by burying her in a box. Rather disturbingly, their young children had heard the violent attack unfolding and even saw their father carrying the body to his vehicle. 46-year-old Brown forced his kids to get in the car and drop them off at his place, where Stephanie Belmere, his pregnant girlfriend, could look after them. He then drove to Windsor Great Park and buried his former wife inside a large plastic box. His daughter called her maternal grandfather, revealing that something bad had happened, but not going into any details. On November the 1st, police searched the home and found bloodstains. They arrested Brown, and while he was in custody, his daughter told police what she'd witnessed on the night of the murder. Brown subsequently claimed he was so stressed by his and his ex's divorce and custody battle that he'd been suffering from adjustment disorder, rendering him unable to remember whether he'd committed the crime or not. Despite all the evidence against him, he was ultimately found not guilty of first-degree murder. The jury instead found him guilty of manslaughter, accepting the defense's theory that Brown had acted out of desperation after a vicious custody battle with the victim. The presiding judge stated during sentencing that Brown still retained full culpability for the killing and sentenced him to 26 years behind bars. In a surprise twist of events, he was scheduled for automatic release in November of 2023 after serving only half his sentence. As of March of that year, it remained unclear whether he would actually be released so soon, as he was still determined to be a threat to society. Number 7. Anthony Haynes. Anthony Haynes, a 51-year-old Welsh businessman, was sentenced to 16 months in prison. On September the 13th of 2021, he'd reportedly broken into his former wife's home on several occasions and killed her $10,000 carp. Haynes couldn't get over their divorce and eventually became obsessed with his ex-wife, Jane's new relationship. 52-year-old Jane had taken out a restraining order against the man after multiple concerning incidents in the period following their 2018 divorce, including one in which she was threatened with a large kitchen knife. Haynes snuck into the home she shared with her boyfriend in Caerphilly, South Wales, and shut off the power, which led to the pricey carp in her garden pond perishing. He also destroyed canvas pictures of his ex-wife with her new partner, rummaged through her drawers and plunged a cleaver and a knife in several kitchen surfaces. He was caught on the home's security camera and later arrested. In addition to the prison sentence, he was given a 10-year restraining order, which forbade him from contacting the victim in any capacity. Number 6. Russell Marsh. 27-year-old Jade Ward was beaten to death inside her home in Flintshire, Wales, in August of 2021. Once she was dead, her estranged husband, Russell Marsh, attempted to hide the body under a pile of used clothes. It was reported that the couple's children were sleeping in the other room while the attack took place. When an autopsy was subsequently conducted, medical investigators discovered injuries all over Ward's body, as well as multiple defense wounds. Marsh was eventually identified as the perpetrator and stood trial for murder, for which he was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison in April of 2022. However, he was still allowed to share custody of his children with his former wife's parents. The victim's family were forced to consult him over issues regarding traveling for the holidays and other medical and legal matters. He even filed a complaint in court to force the children's maternal family to have them visit him behind bars. Number 5. Martin Kavanaugh. On May the 20th of 2018, Martin Kavanaugh confronted his estranged wife, 31-year-old Sophie Kavanaugh, at her apartment in Bromley, London. 35-year-old Kavanaugh demanded she sleep with him one last time for $100 and then grew furious when she rejected the proposition. He'd reportedly become jealous of the fact that Sophie had been browsing dating websites and managed to access her account in order to sabotage it. 4 days before the murder, Kavanaugh sent the woman a message telling her she'd broken, shattered, and ripped him to shreds. Her naked body was found in bed with visible signs of strangulation. Kavanaugh even posted a message on a board stating that she deserved it and went on the run before eventually giving himself up to the police. He was ultimately found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. Number 4. Amber McGlaughlin. Amber McGlaughlin became the first trans woman to be executed by lethal injection in the United States in early 2023. The 49-year-old inmate, who used to be known as Scott before transitioning in prison, assaulted and murdered her former girlfriend on November the 20th of 2003. The victim, Beverly Gunther, aged 45, had taken out a restraining order and told police she feared for her life on numerous occasions before being attacked by her former boyfriend. McGlaughlin proceeded to dump the victim's body in the river. However, police discovered a broken knife and a trail of blood near McGlaughlin's car after a neighbor called 911, concerned the latter hadn't returned home after work, although she requested a pardon from Governor Mike Parson due to mental health issues. The execution was carried on in the state of Missouri on January the 3rd. Number 3. Sharon Kelly. 48-year-old Baron Lee was attacked near his home in Bellevue, Washington on July the 10th of 2020. As it would later emerge, the victim's ex-wife, Sharon Kelly, had hired 2 teenagers to murder him. The would-be hitmen, identified as Joseph Good and Quincy Mendez, were reportedly given $13,000 to carry out the hit on Lee, who was in the midst of a bitter custody battle with Kelly at the time. While one of the young men waited in the car, the other approached Lee right outside his apartment complex and shot him 9 times. Even after the victim fell to the ground, the teen kept shooting, hitting him in the legs, arms, and chest. Lee managed to survive the shooting, and while recovering in the hospital, told police the only person who would have wanted him dead was his ex-wife. When detectives began to investigate the matter, they discovered that Kelly had placed a tracking device on her former husband's car. They were also able to connect the device to the teens. Mendez and Good openly admitted to their role in the attack upon being taken into custody, while Kelly was also arrested on a charge of first-degree attempted murder. Number 2. Angela Taylor and Paul Cannon. 53-year-old Angela Taylor and her partner Paul Cannon, aged 54, murdered the former's estranged husband, William Taylor, and set his vehicle on fire after he refused to sign divorce papers. As his body was not found at the scene in the English city of St. Albans, Taylor was declared missing on June the 4th of 2018. It was subsequently determined that he'd been killed, but his body wasn't found until February of the following year by a fisherman in Hertfordshire. By the time it was examined, it was so badly decomposed that the cause of death could not be accurately determined. During the resulting trial, jurors were shown messages exchanged between Taylor and Cannon, where the woman fantasized about being intimate with her new boyfriend while covered in her estranged husband's blood. They were both found guilty and given sentences of 21 years to life. Number 1. Shelly Carter and Ryan Stark. In September of 2016, Shelly Carter and her boyfriend Ryan Stark, both residents of Middletown, Ohio, hired a hitman to murder the former's estranged husband. Police learned that the 42-year-old woman had paid $500 to eliminate her ex, whose name wasn't released to the public. Carter was supposed to give the assassin another $500 as well as a car once the job was done. After searching the couple's house, investigators tracked Carter and Stark to a hotel room. During interrogation, Carter admitted her involvement in the murder plot and was consequently charged with conspiracy to commit aggravated murder. Casey and Sarah Fryman were also arrested in relation to the murder attempt for aiding Carter in finding a hitman. The latter was found guilty of her crimes and sentenced to 8 years in prison in 2017, while both Frymans were sentenced to 6 years. Thanks for watching. Would you rather endure a long-term and physically abusive relationship with a lover, or have one last romance with that lover and die the next day? Let us know in the comments section below.